our culture is this peculiar miracle, and coming from this super marginalized portion of global society that no one expected anything from anytime soon, apart from like the most disposable labor source imaginable. And from hence emerges what we do. There are many pros, there's some cons. In my observation, the good outweighs the bad by far. I think the full capacity of what this particular expression can do is yet to be even really realized creatively, and in terms of how it shapes the reality of our surroundings for the better, for the greater good, for whatever side of a spectrum you find yourself on socially or politically. There's a sustainable ground zero, so to speak, where everybody can benefit. It's not harming them, and you don't have to harm it. Let's see it out.
Okay. So, I'm listening to a podcast on Audible app. The person who was just speaking was Most Def, the artist, Most Def. Reclaiming my identity, putting it on the timeline, that's not realistic. So I have to really be involved in learning. That way that keeps me filled with something to meditate on, and that gives me also our transcending image of what it means to be a black man. Like, to be a black man is to sort of be like a bastard child. I mean, people know that the child exists. People give the child some sort of emotional input, but yet the child is not really fully given the same rights and freedoms as the kids that are like a stepchild. A black man in America is kind of like a stepchild. Like, it's illegitimate. Like, we were created to be just whatever they wanted us to be. So whenever they get tired of us, and they just get fed up with the whole culture, they get fed up with the whole people as an ethnic people, it can feel a little bit dejected. It can feel like, man, they're rejecting me. But that in itself, that's kind of like psychological warfare. Like, that's a part of the psychological game that some people have been playing on other people, is to make them feel like they're not worthy, or they're not good enough, or just whatever type of crazy stuff that you would not normally think about. Those things were also implanted in our psychological makeup. Just like we have a physical body, we have a mental image of ourselves that was constructed by the society. We didn't just become who we. Hip hop has not even reached its peak of potential. He said it was a way for people to express certain things that were going on in their lives, but it's also a vehicle for empowerment. Like, it's an empowerment. It's a thing of empowerment to speak to your accusers, or to speak to the world at large as, you know what? I see what's going on. I'm not gonna fall in line and comply to what you're saying. I'm not gonna comply to what you're saying, because it's a contradiction to what I'm seeing every day. I'm not gonna obey your laws, because that's just how things have always been, and that's how things are always going to be. No, things come along, things evolve, we evolve, and our viewpoints change, and the people who are usually the trailblazers or the prophets are usually the ones that are outcasts, because they took a stand and they didn't compromise with their beliefs or their message. That's what hip-hop was. Hip-hop was not something that could be bought, and in its beginning, it could not be bought, it could not be manipulated by the culture, for people to, I want to be the best, I want to be, they were striving for the mastery of their craft, but they wasn't doing it for fame and fortune and all these, very superficial things. They were doing it on a very conscious level. They were saying, you know what, we're going to fight the system. We're seeing too many of our black men, our black families destroyed. We're seeing our black neighborhoods being plagued with violence and drugs and all kinds of disorders and dysfunctions. And it was basically a cry. It was a cry to the world saying, man, somebody's fucking us up on purpose. Somebody's putting this shit in our neighborhoods. Somebody's locking up our men, our generations of leaders. They're locking them up systematically. They're tearing down the strong families. Once you start tearing down the family, you tear down the community. You tear down all the institutions in that community. There could have been a lot of businesses that were destroyed because families were destroyed. There could have been a lot of schools that were not able to take off because there wasn't enough people of age, enough respect to teach the young children. So I see what he's saying. Hip hop was in itself a statement saying, you know what, we're still in captivity, man. Even though we can go to the same schools that these other people can go to, we're not getting treated the same way that they get treated once they leave the schools. Once they leave the schools, they go to corporate jobs and they go to they get promoted on a fast pace. They are fast tracked to leadership and management. Where when we come out of school, it's a struggle for us to even fill out an application because the applications sometimes trip us up. Sometimes it's a struggle for us just to get people who can give us a good reference. You know what I'm saying? Who can give us a foot in the door, give us a foot to get give us a foot in the door to get through the door. But once we graduate, we don't have that same history of, okay, there was a generations of people in my family that did this. So I'm going to go take this degree and I'm going to use it for the betterment of myself and my people. So hip hop was like very rebellious, very I can't think of the words I'm trying to say, but it basically said, man, you know what? We're not free because everything that we are involved in is controlled by somebody else. Somebody else controls our builds our houses. Somebody else builds our cars. Somebody else builds the grocery stores we shop from. Somebody else teaches our kids about themselves that don't look like us. So, of course, we're going to be crazy. Of course, we're going to be confused. Of course, we're going to have personality disorders. We're going to be hostile because we don't know. We're living in a system where the people who know what's going on are deemed the craziest. The people who really know, who really see, okay, this is a system of oppression. This is a system of superiority. This is a power situation we're in, And for a long time, I didn't want to see that. I didn't want to see that we were still captives. I wanted to see a post-racial American society where race was not a factor in anything that we did, like as far as economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, war. So, I have to realize that, man. Like a lot of the times when I get low energy, that's a part of the psychological undoing, the unlearning. When I'm unlearning all the bad stuff, that takes energy. That takes a lot of energy to kind of like fight off that inferiority or that feeling of abandonment or that feeling of isolation. I just have to fight that. I have to fight through it. And once I fight through it, I become stronger. I become more able to handle those situations. Those like psychological, the things you don't see, the things that don't have a rhyme or reason. Like the invisible angels that sit on your shoulders, the good one and the bad one. That's the psychological game that we play constantly as black people. It's kind of like we have split personalities because there's one that is our true self and then there's one that's been taught to us through social learning, through interacting with them and interacting with their culture and their people so much. We've learned a new idea. We've learned a new language. Of course, we think in a way that's not unnatural. We think in ways, we talk in ways, we behave in ways, and just unlearning all that, it takes a lot of energy. So I have to give myself grace and allow myself to just live a little bit, you know. And like I said in one of my videos, find sources of inspiration. Don't just sit there and let those negative thoughts just keep beating me up, you know, make me do things or say things or become, you know, fearful or anxious. No, there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. You know, knowledge is power. Once you have power, you're able to arm yourself against the forces against you. That's it. It's mental, it's spiritual, it's psychological. But yeah, man, I thought I'd share that just from
the aim. And none of that is what people can use when they're in real trouble and need real answers. The trophy for a lot of people is the filming of, or the recording of the vision or the idea. If you can even call a lot of that vision, a lot of it is just sight. It's just looking straight ahead, not with any real clear focus in particular anyway, in my observation. A lot of people want to win the game and have the victory lap, the game, but if you're able to do it in a way that you can respect, and it is useful and the others respect, and the people of respect can respect, and you're able to get what you need, and then, you know, you're winning. I mean, to be honest, if you woke up today, you're winning. If you got another chance to life, you're winning sweepstakes every day.